How does a drug detox work? This depends on the type of detox center. Some are medical, where they're employed by either doctors or nurses, and some of them are non-medical, where it is somebody with experience, but they're not there to dispense or prescribe medications. In that second situation, it's already been prescribed by a healthcare professional, the medications. For example, somebody is going through alcohol withdrawal, will have a prescription for some Valium to get them through the next couple days, so to avoid seizures and other complications of sudden cessation of the alcohol. For those who are opioid addicts and in recovery, there could be opioid replacement medications like Suboxone or Methadone, and those have been prescribed. So the medical rehab they're prescribed on site, whereas a non-medical, they are prescribed ahead of time. Regardless, a drug detox allows the user to get off of their drug of choice, whether it's actual drugs or alcohol, and to minimize the withdrawal symptoms as much as possible to make it comfortable for them. It's important to learn which kind it is, because the worst kind, in my opinion, are ones where there's no physician or nurse available, that it can be a very uncomfortable situation, and not having the proper quality of care there could lead them to a high risk of having complications, but also early relapse. Many times people relapse because the detox can be, the situation can be quite atrocious. So it's important to actually check these out, make sure they're clean, they're safe. If there's a medical professional there, that is the best way to go. How does drug addiction affect family members? This is a very difficult situation. Full-fledged addiction wears on everybody in the family. It's because they care and worry so much about the user. However, they're limited as to what they can do. Only the user can do the hard work. The family can help bring them to rehab, be there for support, to not enable them by being there for them but not giving them money, for example. That's what I mean by not enabling. It's a tough situation. It wears on everybody, and even that on its own, though, is not enough to stop the drug user from using. I know this because from my own personal experience, that I was so reluctant to asking for help, and I could see my family were at their wits' ends trying to help me, but if I didn't want to get help for myself, then there's only so much that they could do. So it's a very difficult thing on family members. On the other side of this coin, though, is that when somebody's in rehab, that they learn quickly that they need to be accountable to family. They need to restore the family's trust in them. And that means that they're predictable. There's also an expression, they look clean, act clean, and are clean. So they look well, they're talking openly about their addiction, any issues that are going on, so they can help better enable the family to be involved in their care. Because addiction is an illness of isolation, whereas recovery is one about being connected to family. So it's super important for the user to inform the family what they're going through. When there's a stress of some sort and they're maybe considering using again, to let somebody know right away. The family could learn how to recognize when their loved one is going through a tough time, and so they can apply a team approach. So in summary, when someone is in the deep throes of addiction, it can be very hard on family because they want to help, but they aren't the one who needs to do the work. It's the user themselves. They can try to help as much as they can, but there's only so much. There's a limit to that because the ultimate responsibility lies with the user. In recovery, however, the family is very important because the user needs a support network of people that they can talk to and open up about their issues. So that summarizes it. There's resources available online for family members, those suffering with addiction, with AA and other 12-step groups. They have something called Al-Anon, which is educational groups, self-help group for family members. How long does drug recovery take? This is a variable because it depends on how deep into the addiction the person is, how long they used for, and their drug of choice. But that being said, drug recovery can be broken down into a few different, easier, more manageable chunks. The first one would be acute detox. So this is the early stages where a person is going through a potential withdrawal syndrome from their drug of choice, and that can last up to a few days for alcohol, about a week for opioids at the very worst, but for opioids that'll continue maybe for several months and slowly goes away. But the early stages is about 3 days to a week in general. The next part of recovery, though, is probably an important milestone would be 30 days. So this is where a person's not recovered, but they at least can get to the point where they've had a little bit of sobriety under their belt and living their life a little bit to the point where they can experience some stresses in life drug-free. But the actual answer to is that there is never a full recovery. Someone who has been in the depths of addiction and then in recovery knows this, that they will continue to crave probably for the rest of their life, but it becomes much easier over time. I personally am 3 years into my recovery, and I can handle cravings much better than I did in the beginning, and I'm not at a high risk or high dramatic situation in my life anymore. So I would never really say though that I'm recovered. I am in the process of recovering. I will be in that process for the rest of my life. So to answer that question, I would say 30 days is the milestone. But that's very of early recovery. As far as enduring long-term recovery, I can't really give an answer as far as when is a person recovered, because it's a long-term process. Ways to improve chances of long-term recovery, this is a slightly different question now, is to engage in a program. So this is ongoing care, and I'm not talking just 12 steps like AA, NA, or CA. But to be involved in their community, to give back to the community, to have volunteer work, to continue with a self-help group. If they've been discharged from rehab, then to go to a possible sober living home where they have a chance to gradually return to their normal life. The idea is that we are hit with stresses as life goes on, and we need to unlearn the behavior of self-medication when we're dealt with a blow. So it takes time. Recovery is one day at a time, but to answer the question, early recovery, I would say if a person makes it to 30 days, then that is a big milestone, and they would continue on working from there.